On today's episode of Big Time, the podcast brought to you by the Landscape Supply Company Center, whatever you want to call it. They know what it is. Out there in Herman, Maine, we make history today. We make history today by having our first woman on Big Time. From royalty, too. Madawaska royalty. Liz Clavette on Big Time. Let's go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very, very big time episode of Big Time. We're breaking history. We're knocking down barriers. I think our guest today is going to knock down two walls or set two records. One, first of all, the first woman on Big Time. Second of all, I think the youngest guest we've had, Liz Clavette from Madawaska, Maine. Not coming to you live from Madawaska, Maine. No, Liz, where are you coming from right now?
I'm coming live from Bozeman, Montana.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Bozeman, Montana.
Right?
We'll get into how come you're out there and what you're doing out there later on. But for now, first of all, first woman. That's a big deal. You're knocking down walls. That's huge. I don't think you understand the importance of this.
It's a little nerve-wracking, actually.
And then also, I think you are the youngest guest. You were born what? 87.
87. Yep.
What's your?
87.
What's your birthday?
August 25, 1987.
You are the youngest big timer yet, so that's good. That's two big things right there.
Woo-hoo.
I'm going to start off the episode the same way we start off every episode. Liz, what are you drinking on for tonight's episode?
I am drinking a glass of wine.
Do you want to go into details? You're just going to keep it at that?
I'm drinking a Pinot Grigio.
All right.
Chilled.
There you go. Specifics are always good. And, we love sponsors around here. I would love to get this company to sponsor us. I'm drinking a Truly. Truly, if you listen to the podcast, we will take all the free Truly in the world. So now that we've got that out of the way, it's time to get down to business. As I mentioned on the intro, Liz didn't hear it yet, but I recorded it before she got on. You come from like Madawaska royalty. The Clavettes are like a big name out there in Madtown, right?
That's what they say.
I kind of feel like House Clavette kind of resembles House Bard. We got three brothers and then a baby girl at the very end.
Yes, absolutely.
A very good athletic family. Your dad played sports, right?
Yes, he did.
Was your mom an athlete as well?
No, not really.
It's pretty scary how much our families resemble each other. Same exact deal in our case here. But as we mentioned, grew up in Madawaska, Maine, the youngest of four kids. You already mentioned John. Who we got for the other brothers here?
I have Peter, the oldest, and Andrew, who's the youngest boy.
What are we looking at for an age gap from oldest to youngest?
There's a huge age gap. I was a complete surprise to my whole entire family. Andrew was 7 when I was born.
Oh, man.
And Peter was, he must have been 14, and John maybe 13. So huge age gap. I took away the baby spot from Andrew.
Is that why he's so bitter sometimes?
I think that's why he resents me a little bit. I think he was still sleeping in the bed when
Oh, man.
when I came along, so I had to kick him out.
It makes a little bit of sense now that you bring that up. It all makes sense why Drew is the way he is. That's cool. So growing up, you didn't really get to see Pete and John when it came to athletics and stuff like that.
Not much. Actually, I was born like high soccer season, end of August. So I started going to all those games just as, a newborn.
Yeah.
And Peter was just going into high school. I do remember bits and pieces of John just because I was, younger, and my best friend, Anna Canan, our brothers both played basketball, and we would go to all the games. And I remember when they made it to the Bangor Auditorium and we got all dressed up and went and watched them with Joey Canan and Pierre Michaud and all those guys. So
you remember a little bit then. You remember some of the names, some of the big games, stuff like that.
Yes, absolutely.
Were you the type that liked going to these games, or were you just dragged around from to all your brother's games? Like, do you resent your brothers for being dragged around as a child?
I 100% hated with a passion going to all these games. I even told my parents that I was not going to play a sport. I was not playing basketball. I was not playing soccer. I did not like sports. I wanted to be a cheerleader. That was like as far as it went. And so my mom was pretty good. Like she'd set me up in the back of the van at soccer games with like toys and Barbies and all that stuff, and I would kind of play with that. But yeah, I was it was a constant thing though. All my brothers played all the sports. So I was constantly going from one to the next.
Yeah, and I was gonna say,
And
like,
yeah,
with such an age gap, like that was literally your entire childhood.
yeah, I was in my entire life until I was in 6th grade, and then everyone was out of the house and I had like the house to myself.
So if you didn't like sports at first, when did you kind of get into it?
My actually the first Dutch soccer academy that it came to Madawaska. It was the first year
Ooh,
ever.
yeah.
And my cousin Mikey Arnold and Matt Arnold lived across the street from us. And my Aunt Lucy called my mom and said that she signed up the boys. And so my mom asked me if I wanted to do it. And I told her absolutely not, do not want to. And then after talking to Mikey, he kind of convinced me the night before. So last minute, my mom signed me up that night, went down to Kmart, got me a cheap pair of cleats and shin guards. And I went the next day, and the next day I was kind of apprehensive, didn't really want to go. And then I went, I got a soccer ball to the face, and
Ooh.
and I scored a goal, which turned things around, and I just loved it. And I don't know if you're familiar with Dutch Soccer Academy, but Robbie and that whole crew can make anyone love the sport. They were just fabulous.
Yeah, so I was hoping you get into it a little bit more because Dutch Soccer Academy has not really been brought up at all. But I remember, like, I never did it growing up, but I know a lot of my classmates did it, and they always look forward to it. So talk about Dutch Soccer Academy a little bit.
It's with Robbie Cruel, I think is his last name, and his wife, and they started coming up to Madawaska. I think they did Fort Kent too, and they just put on a clinic for us, and then eventually they did a whole week camp at Umpy. So I started going to the week camp maybe in middle school or even in high school. And the crazy thing is that they're still doing it. My niece, who is 12, just went to her first week overnight camp at Umpy for Dutch soccer. So you just play games, learn all sorts of different soccer moves. I don't know. They're great people and very supportive and positive and upbeat. So
And then that's what hooked you into soccer right there, right?
that's what hooked me into playing sports. So
You didn't let a ball to the face on the first day bring you
yeah,
down.
yeah, no.
So you mentioned you also scored on that first day. Did you score by getting the ball but kicked off your face, or was it an actual? Did you actually kick it in?
No, it was an actual goal.
Okay,
It wasn't a mistake.
just wanted to check on that. And then you brought up something else too that I want to ask about real quick because I grew up in Fort Kent, so I know a little bit what it's like growing up in Fort Kent. But I'm always fascinated to hear about the kids from Madtown and saying I get how they grew up. You mentioned Kmart. Were you a Kmart kid or an Ames kid growing up?
Ooh, I was a Kmart kid for sure.
Yeah, because Ames wouldn't have been around too long while you were growing up, right?
No, it was. I remember it, but it wasn't. I remember we had Kmart and then the Fashion Bug
Oh,
too.
yeah, that's true.
And so we had like all of those stores. You know what cracks me up too is every time I go home and my mom references Kmart as Kmart's with an S at the end and it drives me nuts. And
Yeah,
I realize that a lot of people say back home say Kmart's.
it's true. Now that you said this, I have heard that pretty much my entire life. That is pretty funny right there. So what else were you into growing up? So you didn't really get into sports until about middle school. So were you just a girly girl growing up?
Not quite. I did play Little League, um, baseball, and I wanted to play on the guys team. So I did do that. I played for the Knights of Columbus. We were the orange team. Um, Mikey's dad was our coach, and um, I was just tiny, a little thing, and I remember going up to bat one time, and people from Madawaska know him. His name is David Daigle, and I used to call him Big Dave. And he's 4 years older than me. He's just this huge guy. And he was pitching, and he wound up and threw the ball, and it hit me right in the jaw.
Oh God.
And I remember just standing there thinking, "Don't cry. You're playing, you're playing in a guys game. Don't cry. Don't cry." And I just stood there for a while, kind of stunned, and then like slowly ran to first base.
You had a
Then
rough.
that,
You had a rough some of these early sports experiences there.
yes, I did. But I stuck through. I stuck.
Yeah. So what else was cool growing up in Madtown? Because like, we had coupons, so I know like from a guy's perspective, what Coop did growing up was pretty much all sports. And I talked to Rusty too, kind of talked about growing up in Madtown and it was all sports. Like, so what did girls do growing up? Like, what did you guys do for fun up there?
I lived on Summer Street. We had a pretty cool group of people. We had my cousins Mikey Arnold and Matt Arnold across the street. We had Ryan and Randy Burgoyne. We had Michelle Lavatsya. We had the Gorettes on our block, and then up the block was Edward Levatsu, Michael Levatsu, Emily Levatsu, and Christina Levatsu, and they were really good soccer players. They babysat for me, and I hung out with them quite a bit. And then with my brothers, we just always had people over at our house, and we played kick the can and capture the flag.
Oh yeah, good stuff right there.
All sorts of people, but my dad also built a basketball court in our upper level of our backyard. So my brothers played basketball a lot up there. And then I kind of was just a tag along. I just went wherever they went. My dad was a teacher, so he did men's basketball and opened that up for everyone a lot. And I remember having to go to those too. And I'd either go up in his classroom or play, or I'd sit and hang out and I'd watch. It would be my brothers, all of them. My dad would play. My dad played men's basketball, I think, up until he was maybe 56 or 58.
Our families mirror each other so much. I mean, that's my dad.
Similar,
My dad's
right?
still playing. Yeah.
And I remember Scott Daigle playing. I remember especially around the holidays, they would get like a huge group of guys to play. But as for girls, I just kind of tagged along. I had Kelly Chassie, one of my best friends, lived down the road, and we would hang out. We'd get a group of us and go to the soccer fields and play soccer. But yeah, that was kind of, I feel like I had the best childhood ever because we had an awesome group of kids in my neighborhood, and we just were constantly outside doing stuff.
Yeah. Madawaska's got great neighborhoods too. Like just like the way it's laid out, like you actually have like neighborhoods. So, I mean, you
Yeah,
actually
we do, for
that's
sure.
cool. Yeah. So let's get to middle school a little bit. So you mentioned Dutch Soccer Academy. When did you actually start playing sports like for the Madawaska teams here?
Well, I played, like the small little traveling groups or whatever they would have going on in elementary. And then in middle school, I ended up playing basketball and soccer. And soccer, it was Mrs. Dow was our coach. And we had an A and B team.
Which team
And
did you
then,
make?
what's that?
Which team did you make?
In sixth grade, because at that time, sixth grade was still a part of like the high school, middle school.
Yeah.
In sixth grade, I was on the B team. And then
Okay.
in seventh grade, I was on the A team.
Nice.
And then eighth grade as well. And then we also had an A and B team for basketball, and our coach was actually Mr. Sirwa, Ben Sirwa.
Oh, okay.
So he coached us for basketball,
Yep.
and I actually come from I feel like a pretty athletic class, very competitive group of people. I'm pretty sure almost every single girl played soccer in middle school in my class.
Were you guys good in middle school too?
We were really good. Yeah, we were very good. We had a good group ahead of us. So we had Martine Daigle, Michelle Lavatsya, Michelle Morneau in that group. And then the class below me also was a great group of girls with Beth Gerard and Sarah Natta, Ange K, Ange M, Liz LaPlante. So they were really good athletically as well. So I
Yeah.
feel like we were very good for soccer wise. Basketball, the girls team struggled a little bit more. But yeah.
It's all right. It's all about making memories and stuff like that at that age. Were you guys were traveling, right? You guys actually traveled to play other schools
Yep, we
in middle school.
traveled. We traveled to the typical Caribou, Wisdom, Fort Kent, Van Buren, all of those places, Fort Fairfield, Ashland. So we did travel quite a bit.
You guys are lucky. We did not have that in Fort King.
You guys didn't?
We traveled to St. Francis and we traveled to Eagle Lake.
Interesting.
Yep, yep. We
Then
were
didn't maybe we didn't play you guys. I thought we
no,
played Fort Kent.
no, maybe like a random tournament or something like that. But we just sticked within the district. It was terrible. It was awful.
That sounds awful.
Yeah, I don't want to get into it, Liz. All right, it brings back bad memories. I don't want to go there right now. But yeah. So before we get into high school here, I just want to wrap up a couple things about middle school. Just
Okay.
random topics. All right, don't feel uncomfortable. But did you guys have like a middle school dance or like a middle school prom?
We had a middle school dance. We didn't do prom.
Okay.
But we would do dances. And I remember my parents wouldn't let me go to them. And then they let me go to like my first dance. And it was just the most amazing thing back in my mind.
Did you ever date somebody ask you, or you just went solo?
No, we went just all our group of friends, like all our girls. And it was like a typical, middle school dance. The guys stood in the corner up
Hmm.
against the wall. The girls like socialized and danced. And
Yeah,
it was very typical.
good stuff. How about in Fort Kent we have the world famous or the former world famous Plord Century Theater out there in Madtown. It's what Fox Theater.
Yes, we did have Fox Theater.
When did you start going to Fox Theater? What was that like? Was there some shady stuff going on back there?
No, well, yeah. Um, you oddly, my very first Fox Theater, like going there, my dad dropped me and my friends off, and I was so excited that my parents were letting me go to the movies with all my friends. And I remember I was sitting there with my group of friends. And I looked behind me, and there's my dad eating popcorn. He dropped us off and then snuck in. And I remember being mortified that he was in the theater eating popcorn, watching the movie with us.
What a clever dad.
Yeah, yeah.
You remember what the movie was?
I do not actually. I
Okay.
do remember like only movie I remember going there to is Titanic.
Oh, classic.
Yes, it was.
All right, that's all I had for middle school. I thought those were two very important things to cover
You
right
know,
there.
a fun middle school fact is we used to have ICQ
Yes.
in middle school, and I started getting messages on ICQ from this kid, and it turns out it was your brother. I was
Which
in eighth grade, and it was Sam. I was in eighth grade, and
Sam was hitting on you in ICQ when he was in sixth grade. You were in eighth grade.
oh yeah, it was. I used to babysit for Sarah and Carrie,
Yep.
and so that all got. And I remember this kid was messaging me, and I found out he was in sixth grade, and I was
That was the first attempt to unite House Bard and Clavette right there.
yeah.
It didn't work out.
No, it didn't.
Let's get to high school here. So you arrive as a freshman. You literally just move down the hallway because it's all in the same building. You didn't have to
Yes.
go to a different school. It's all right there.
Hmm.
First impressions of the big high school.
First impressions. I mean, I was there from sixth grade, so I kind of, and my dad actually working there, and my brothers all being there. It kind of was like the same old thing. I don't know. It was a good feeling of being a freshman. It was also a good feeling of being on my own, like no brothers around, kind of. Um, I was kind of nerdy looking my freshman year. Like the braces, the glasses, like a really short bowl cut type hair,
A
like up to
bowl
my
cut.
chin. Not a bowl cut, but like up to my chin.
Yeah.
Um, Definitely nerdy. I started working actually at the Tasty Freeze my freshman year,
Oh wow.
and I'm pretty sure I packed on a solid 30 pounds. that first year.
That tasty freeze will do it to you.
Oh yeah, I was having large half and halves with hot fudge and peanut butter and Reese cups and just every night.
Just loving life. You were living your best life. You didn't know any
I
better.
was, and so we started soccer, and I was like a solid 30 pounds heavier than I when the summer first started. So I remember starting the soccer season and being a freshman and being, I looked up to all those soccer players like Kay and Christine Sear, Kay Gerard, Megan Marshall, all those girls. And I remember just being, this tiny thing playing soccer and being so intimidated by all of them.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So when you had showed up, Madawaska has had a history, right? The girls' soccer program is pretty solid, right?
We had a very, very solid soccer program. I feel like when I started my freshman year, we had really good seniors, and then it just progressed and it continued, It never seemed to be a year where it was like a rebuilding year. You know what I mean?
Who was the coach?
It was Mr. Marshall.
Mr. Marshall was the women's soccer coach. You had some good people in front of you. Did you make the varsity as a freshman?
No, I did as a sophomore,
Okay.
not as a freshman. The freshman year, I remember, for instance, for seniors, again, Christine Sear, Kay Gerard, Megan Marshall, Danielle Lavwell, Linnell Winters. There was like a really good senior group, and they were very athletic. And then underneath them, they had like Rosa Lindano and that whole group of people. So we were a pretty strong soccer team. So it was definitely a very challenging and competitive to get, playing time.
Right. What position did you play? We haven't even talked about that at all.
I played halfback.
Was that by choice, or were you just trying to get on the field and you took whatever position you could get?
I kind of just took whatever position. I mean, what's going on?
I live in a very rough neighborhood. If you guys can, this is a nightly occurrence right here. So don't worry about that.
No, you're fine. I played halfback. I kind of just took it just because it was challenging because you had to play both, offense and defense.
Yep.
And defense wasn't really my strong suit, so I wasn't a hard or a tough player, I guess.
You just wanted to score goals, get your name on the St. John Valley Times, maybe have a Don Arnold picture.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Grampy Arnold. Yep.
So do you have any quick freshman year stories real quick? Anything cool, or you just kind of try to block that out from the soccer
I don't
team?
know if I have anything cool.
No.
My freshman story. I've listened to all your podcasts, and it's amazing how every single guy that you have interviewed remembers just everything.
It's because we live in the past.
And I don't I was trying to think today. Well, I don't know. I was thinking for a while since you've asked me to do this, and I was trying to go back and remember things, and it just amazes me how much all the others remember everything.
So sophomore year, were you getting playing time sophomore year, or were you? There go the sirens again. Don't worry about the sirens
Are
in the
you
background.
safe? I'm concerned for you now.
I live in a good complex. It's just like in between like the bad neighborhoods. So like this happens every night. Don't worry about it.
Not a big deal.
Nah, it's fine. It puts me to sleep. Yeah. So were you getting playing time sophomore year, or were you just on the varsity sophomore year?
I was swinging, I believe. So I was getting like here and there. Again, still a good group of people. The team was pretty good. I can't quite remember. I remember more of my junior and senior year than my freshman and sophomore year.
Yeah. Do you remember what you guys finished with win-loss record your sophomore year, or how far you guys made it?
No, isn't that terrible? I don't remember any of that.
That's fine. Well, you know what then? What's the point? Let's just jump ahead to junior year then.
I'm so sorry.
No.
You wanted to interview me, and I told you I had nothing to...
You should have cracked open the yearbooks or something. You should have got prepared.
I have yearbooks. They're in Maine. I live in Montana.
Right, that's true. Let's jump ahead to junior year anyway, because I'm guessing like starting junior year, got more playing time. You weren't swinging. You were full-time varsity. Big deal. I like to ask a lot of random questions. What song did you girls run out to on the soccer field? Like, what was your warm-up music like on the actual field for home games?
We changed it a lot, but we liked a lot of Eminem.
Oh yeah,
I
that was that
remember
time.
that.
Yeah.
Yes. You know that song Lean Back?
Yes, Fat Joe.
Yes, that one. We listened to that one a lot. The one that we listened to actually to pump ourselves up, Kelly, Shassie and I had like a little tradition. We would go to my house and eat ramen noodles and sandwiches. And then Anna would pick us up, or we'd pick Anna up, and we'd do a loop, like down Main Street, like the Kmart loop.
Yeah,
You know what I'm talking
hold on.
about?
What's the Madawaska loop? I know the Fort Kent loop. What's the Madtown loop?
It was the Kmart parking lot all the way to the past Tasty Freeze, like that gas company.
Yeah.
And so we'd turn there and go back, and then we'd hang out in the Kmart parking lot.
That's solid.
But yeah, it was pretty fun. So we'd we'd ride around and we would listen to Korn. So like very heavy stuff.
It was the early 2000s. It was a weird time of music. There's nothing wrong with that.
It was weird. We'd listen to Snoop Dogg, Drop It Like It's Hot. We would stop at Tasty Freeze and get ourselves a Wizard.
Before a game?
Before the game, eat it, and then head up to the field.
Good God.
Yeah.
How did you feel?
That was kind of like
how did you feel after that?
I felt great. I felt great. I was ready, you know?
Yeah. And you guys had a great home field environment. Did you guys have lights when you were in high school, or the lights come after you were in high school?
Oh, no, we had lights.
All right, so you were doing under the lights, big time game, great field. What's the channel out there in Madawaska? What's the local TV channel?
It kept changing. It was like Channel 7, then it was Channel 13.
Yeah, whatever channel it was. They used to tape all the games, great environment. And you
WOWL, that's what it was.
That's what it is. And you guys were good. You guys had some good teams your junior and senior year, right?
We definitely did. We had a group, like I said, ahead of us, Martine Daigle, Michelle Lavutsu, Michelle Morneau. And then below us, we had a good group too, like Sarah Nato, Ann Jamage, Kay, Beth Gerard. So we had a really, really good group of people. I think for freshmen, the only one I could really remember is Ashley Sear, my junior year. And she was a freshman, and she was very, very good athlete as well.
Did you guys all get along? I felt there's a lot of personalities on that team right there.
It was a lot of personalities. Surprisingly, I feel like our soccer team was pretty close. I would say the class above me, they had good athletes, but they didn't have like a very big athletic class, I guess.
Yeah.
But my class and the class below me, for boys and girls, we both had a big group of athletes, and we were both very competitive. And it was like it got a little crazy at Winter Carnival because, we became completely, out to get each other, competitive. But during soccer, I felt like we were a pretty close-knit group of girls.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get to our first official segment on the pod. It's called Ethan Ask. And Ethan's asking, where are the sponsors? We're almost done season 2. Still no sponsor for Ethan Ask. Come on, somebody please step up. Help this man out. We got bills to pay here at the pod. Ethan, take it away.
So first of all, I just want to say congrats, Liz, on being the first female in the Big Time Podcast family. It's no longer a fraternity, and that's a good thing. So it's pretty well known. We've talked about it a lot on the show, about the Fort Kent Madtown rivalry. Obviously, I think on my podcast and a few others, I talked about how I butted heads with a lot of the Madtown guys on the field and on the basketball court, and made enemies that I'm now friends with. But what was it like on the girls' side? Did you get along with the other girls in the valley, or was it pretty bitter on the field? Was there hair pulling and shoving and elbowing and shirt tugging, whatever else might have gone on? So what were the dynamics like on the girls' side of sports?
It was, that's a good question. I think just the Fort Kent Madawaska vibe and the rivalry, it was kind of bitter, I guess. I remember we would all be, I was very intimidated by Michelle Karen for one. Definitely, um, some of the girls would try to talk to some of our guys and we'd be kind of upset about that and vice versa. Sometimes we would show up and go to the church parking lot growing up kind of just to start things. But on the field, it was definitely one of our biggest games, one where we really amped ourselves up for. We definitely were going out for blood each time. I mean, same thing as guys and their rivals with Fort Kent. It was the same thing with girls. And then when you go to college and you meet the girls afterwards, it's kind of just, you become friends with them. They become your friends. But definitely high school, it's a different vibe.
Let me ask you a real serious question. And every time I ask my guests this question, it's always the same answer. I need you to be honest about this, though. All right?
Okay.
Your Madawaska's big rival, Fort Kent, obviously. How did
Yes.
you guys do in the rivalry games? Because every person I talked to, they never ever lost to their rival. Was that the case for you?
Um, it was back and forth.
Okay.
Because you guys had a good team too. I remember I swear, this is like the highlight of my life when it comes to sports. But Mindy Morneau was the goalie for Fort Kent. And it was Madawaska versus Fort Kent in Madawaska under the lights. It was like a big game, big deal. And I remember talking to Mindy on MSN Messenger the night before. And she had made a bet with me, like if I score on her, she owed me something. And if I didn't score on her, then I didn't, then I owed her something. It was something like that. And anyway, so it was under the lights, and they had a good team, because that's your class too. So
Oh,
they
yeah.
had Gabby Sear, Mr. Sear's daughter,
Yep.
and she was amazing.
She was good, yeah.
You had Sarah Dubé and Sherry Willette. I remember them, like they were good. Casey Pelletier, but I'm pretty sure that game, Gabby Sear scissor kicked it into the goal. And it was pretty nice. And it was, I think at the end it was 1-0 and we were battling and there was like 6 minutes left in the game and someone had gotten a handball between the, somewhere between the goal and the half court or whatnot. And I remember I took all the indirect and direct kicks for our team. And I remember looking at the ball and I was going to cross it over to someone to kick it in. And I remember Mr. Marshall just looking at me like, just do it on goal, like shoot it on goal, pray for the best. And I remember just backing up and swinging and it just hit that top left-hand corner. And we scored. And it felt like we won the state championship. We were so excited.
Yeah.
And so that was probably my favorite. But anyway, we ended up tying. We ended up going into overtime and tying 1-1.
Yeah.
So I can tell you this. I don't think my junior or senior year, I don't think we beat Fort Kent in basketball. But in soccer, we definitely.
Yeah, we had some good basketball teams at that point, and I don't remember Madawaska being that great basketball-wise at that time.
We were good when I was a freshman because we had Christine again and Kay and Megan Marshall and all those guys, and they went to the auditorium. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of went downhill. We just had no tall people. You
kind of need height a little bit.
And you guys had good. You had Kristen Violet.
Yeah, and Marissa Albert.
Ashley Desjardins. Yeah. I remember her. I was so intimidated by Ashley Desjardins and Michelle Karen. I remember that, being so intimidated by them.
That's funny. Oh, good times. Good memories right there.
Yeah.
Do you remember what the bet was with Mindy since you scored on her in that game or what?
I did. She gave me like a whole bag full of chocolate candy bars. Yeah, that was that.
Wow. All right. We'll take it. Did you guys, I'm guessing you made the tournament for soccer your junior year and senior year?
We did. In my senior year, actually, we made it to the Eastern Maine finals.
Ah,
And we played against George Stevens Academy. And we played in Madawaska. We had home field advantage. Um, I remember it had snowed. I think they had plowed the field. And our guys happened to be in Eastern Maine finals as well. And so they were playing. So we didn't have our guys for support, but we had everyone else. We were up 1-0 the whole game. And then I think Kelly Chassis actually scored the goal. And we were up 1-0. And then I think the last 15 to 20 minutes, Mr. Marshall, for some reason, took our whole fullback and halfback line out to like give us a break. And they scored instantly. And so he threw everyone back in. And then we just fought, and we ended up going to 2 double overtimes and then penalty kicks, and we lost Eastern Maine on penalty kicks. It was the most terrible thing ever.
was that the? I'm guessing that's got to be the toughest loss you took right there.
What's that? Yeah,
That's got to be the toughest loss, I
absolutely.
would think. Yeah.
Absolutely. Penalty kicks, it's no way to lose a game, that's for sure. And then Eastern Maine on top of that.
Yeah.
But our guys actually won Eastern Maine, so they were pretty pumped up about that. We were pretty down and out.
Yeah, that's what I remember. Like I remember, like you guys having like great soccer teams at that point, just not so great basketball teams at that point.
No basketball either. I don't even think basketball so for instance, for soccer, my senior year, we had 11 seniors on our team.
Dang.
And for basketball, we might have had 4, maybe, seniors. Yeah, Aaron Pelletier, myself, Kelly, Roxanne, and I can't remember, but the senior, and same thing for guys basketball. I think
It was just
the only
Miles,
one
I
who played
think.
was Miles. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's the only
think
thing
he
I
was the
remember.
only one.
That's the only one I remember right there.
But we had good like guy soccer team. We had Miles and Mikey and Paul Michaud, Justin Lagasse. For our senior boys, we had a good group also.
Yeah. How did everyone get along in school itself? I know like we had mentioned there's a lot of personalities on the soccer team. Like for girls, everyone get along in general though. School was good. There was no drama, or was there all kinds of drama?
I mean, with everything, you're always going to have drama. I definitely hung out a lot. We had like a core group of friends that we hung out with, especially my my entire life, my best friend at the time was Mikey Arnold.
Yeah.
We are cousins. Our moms are sisters. We're 20 days apart. We lived across the street. And then I hung out a lot with Miles, Kelly, Chassis, and Anna. Hung out with them a lot. Stephanie Sear. So we had like our core group of friends, Nate DeShane, all those guys. We had a tight knit class too, because I remember our senior year. So we do prom in Madawaska, and I think Fort Kent's different, but prom is just a senior prom.
Yeah, we got junior, senior prom.
Yeah, and so you couldn't go to prom if you were an underclassman unless you were asked by a senior.
Yeah.
And so our senior year, we tried so hard for everyone to not ask anyone like out of our class because we wanted to just be us.
Yeah.
So we had a pretty close knit class.
Who'd you go to prom with senior year?
I went to prom with Miles Morneau.
No shit. Okay, that's good.
I did.
Who was prom king and queen?
We didn't have prom king and queen. We had coronation because we did the winter carnival.
Yeah.
And so we did a coronation. And my senior year, it was Miles and I were actually runner up for king and queen, and then Stephanie Sear or Stephanie Nato and Kevin Daigle were king and queen.
Nice. Can't go wrong there. You can't be mad at that.
Oh, absolutely not. And Steph was one of my best friends throughout high school, and so it was definitely a good thing.
Absolutely. Let's transition once again here. So after high school comes college. It's where I got to know you a little bit better when you came to the great institution in Fort Kent, the University of Maine at Fort Kent. Did you plan on playing soccer all along, or was it just one of those things where you kind of showed up and then you're like, I guess I'll play? I was gonna say it must have been Lucas just must have gave you like the greatest recruiting pitch ever, and you're just like, I'm in, Lucas.
He was kind of I just love Lucas, but he just like kind of gave me a like handshake and like, hey, good game. It was actually I think that game that I scored on Mindy when it happened. But yeah, I was absolutely not going there. So then finally last minute I gave up on sports and I was like, I'm gonna go to Orono. That's where a lot of my friends are going. At that time we used to do instant messenger on MSN, and I remember Carson Hartman and I were friends on there, and he was going to Orono too, and that's where I was going, and got ready, and then it was the week before orientation at Orono, and I looked at my parents and I just looked at them and said, I'm not going to Orono. And that was that. My mom asked me what my next plan was, and I decided to go to UMFK. I wasn't ready to leave home. And so my dad drove me to Fort Kent. I walked into the admissions office. It was Jerry Nato and Jill Cairns and all those guys. And
Yep.
I filled out Brenda Floor, and I filled out my application, got accepted that day, and then talked to Lucas, and then started soccer preseason the next week.
Just like that.
Just like that. And then Carson messaged me and was like, where are you? I was at orientation and your name got called, but you didn't come down. I was like, I'm not going to Orono anymore.
Yeah.
So, and then the thing was my parents wanted me to stay in Fort Kent in the dorms. And so, I think what I felt more comforted is that Mikey was going to Fort Kent as well to play soccer. And he was always doing that. And I think at the time I wasn't ready to kind of move away from the home either. So kind of worked out.
What kind of soccer team were you walking into? Because Lucas had taken over maybe like a year or two before, and the team was gradually getting better because they weren't always very good. When you first showed up, must have been still a lot of local people though, right? Like a lot of like Fort Kent, Madawaska.
It was a lot of local people. So my freshman year, it was Christine Sear, Amber Nato, Polly Pelletier was on there.
Yeah.
She kind of came halfway through the season, but Megan Watson, she got recruited.
Yeah.
And then Neely Lozier, Heather Hartman. And Megan Foreman was actually our assistant coach, and
Yeah,
Lucas was
that's true.
our
Yeah.
coach. And so we had Mindy Watson. I don't know if you remember Mindy Watson. She was just there for a year. It was probably my freshman year was hands down my favorite year for college altogether. Yeah, it was great. We had also on top of that, my freshman year, I think Lucas had just started kind of recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Woogie, I think, came too.
Yeah, Woogie would have been. Yeah, we were all there the same year, first year.
Yeah, and so we had Jody Black.
Oh, Jody Blake.
Or Blake, yes, Jody Blake.
Jody Blake, who was black.
There we go. She was actually dating Arnold.
Yeah, I remember Arnold. Yeah.
And so she was on our team.
She was good.
And so was Maria Williams. I don't know if you remember Maria Williams.
Yes.
She was pretty good too.
Yeah.
So we had all those guys on our team. But it was kind of a lax year. We did a lot of partying, a lot of drinking.
Yeah.
And Lucas just didn't have any of that. He just made us run all day long. So our first year was kind of just figuring out. I remember walking onto the field and seeing Christine Sear. And I mean, my freshman year, I was terrified and very intimidated by her. And she's the nicest person ever.
Yeah.
But, when you're that good of an athlete and you grew up wanting to be just as good as them. And Christine ended up becoming one of my best friends in college. We ended up living together and everything. But her and Amber took me and Neely and Megan under their wings, and we kind of hung out with those girls. And a lot of the guys on the other team, there's Jeremiah Delisle was playing at the time.
Oh, boy, Maya, yep.
And Donnie was still on the team. So it was a lot of fun. The bus rides were a lot of fun. Mikey Arnold was playing for them, but so was Andy Martin, and those guys. So yeah, it was my freshman year was pretty fun.
Let's get to another round of Ethan Asks big time questions.
What was that transition like coming from being a Madawaska Owl your whole life, wearing the white and blue, and then moving to Fort Kent for college and putting on the green and white, playing for the Lady Bengals? And then, of course, you had to be teammates with a bunch of the girls you probably grew up playing against. So how did you make that transition coming over?
I just made it. I think what helped me out a lot is that Christine Sear did it before me, and she was so successful. And the other thing about Fort Kent is, yeah, there are rivals, but I remember going to Fort Kent, and they were so welcoming and like so nice to myself and all of us that were coming in, that it kind of was an easy transition. And then we already had groups of friends, and I think what helped with the transition is becoming friends with, Neely and Amber, who were from Fort Kent, and that kind of helps, become friends with other people. And
Yeah, it also helps with like those like Amber and Neely, like two of the nicest people in the entire world. So
exactly, they're the nicest people. So that's what made it, easy. And so we would ride around and hang out, and definitely kind of made a different. I was no longer Liz from Madawaska. You know what I mean? I wasn't a rival anymore.
real quick, you mentioned riding around, and we talked about your looping days in Madawaska. What's the better loop, Fort Kent or Madtown?
You know what my favorite loop is the Soldier Pond loop.
Oh,
That would be my favorite, and that's the one we used to do listening to our Sirius XM,
oh my
their
God.
Sirius radio. But that was kind of the thing when I was there.
That might be the best answer I've ever had to any question on the podcast right there. That was good. What were you partying at? Were you just doing like the whole house party dorm thing, or were you doing Canada?
So we were doing, obviously, I had a dorm at the lodge, so we would hang out there a lot. And then I believe my freshman year, do you remember Justin Dunley and those guys?
Yeah.
He had a house like out on Main, and I remember we'd go there, and then the house up on Route 11, you know what I'm talking about, where Jeremiah and Troy and all those guys.
Yep.
We would go party up there a lot, and then go to Round Point too.
Just the best of times, the absolute best of times.
It was the absolute best, and we'd go party at Crocker Hall too, just because we would go hang out with Noe and Jaime and all those guys.
There were so many great like personalities at that time. Like there was just
so many.
Everyone hung out, everyone got along. It was just a really, really good time to be there.
Yes, it was a blast, definitely, for sure.
The soccer teams throughout your time there, did they get better? Did you guys stay about the same?
No, they got better. I think that my freshman year, we were probably the closest team at the time. I think out of all my years at Fort Kent, my freshman year is definitely the closest. My sophomore year, Lucas definitely put down like the law and changed things up. We did 2-a-days. They were very intense. He started recruiting more. We had Shanae Armstrong, I believe, and a few other people that he started recruiting. And then my sophomore year, that's when he recruited Sarah Nato, Regan Brown, Nicole Nowakowski. So all those girls came on. Steph Schofield came on, and so we got even better. I think my sophomore year, I think we actually made it to the NAIA conference in New York.
Yep.
So definitely got better, and I think Lucas just became a better coach as he continued on. He was probably one of my favorite coaches ever. His personality is awesome.
Yeah, because you probably came along right at the time where he probably took over like a year or two before that, and so he was learning to coach. He was kind of learning on the fly.
I feel like my freshman year, we definitely tested his limits, and tested him. But my sophomore year, he came on a lot stronger and very serious about the sport and kind of made us very serious about it. So, yeah.
Do you have any great Lucas stories?
I have a lot. I don't know if we used to love to just mess around with him. Neely, myself, Christine, Amber, we just like to bug him. And he was such a good sport and he'd bug us back.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun. I applaud him because going on a bus ride with a bunch of females has got to be rough.
Yeah, and he did it every year, year after year after year for how many years? So kudos to him for that.
Mm-hmm.
Who were some of the other names that came along while you were there? I mean, you've been dropping a shitload of names, some big time names.
I know. Let's see. So I think I didn't say this, but in high school, my senior year, we had awesome goalie, Liz LaPlante. She was fantastic. She would dye her hair every color in the book.
Yeah, I remember that.
So we kind of recruited her to see if she would come because Heather actually was our goalie my freshman year.
Yep.
And then I think we ended up recruiting Liz, and she came on for a little while. But my junior year, I'm trying to think. That's when we had more recruits. But I can't even think of it.
Just drawing a blank.
Emily Burnett.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember her. Yeah. She was a really good player. She was a good striker, that's for sure. Sarah, Regan, Nicole. I don't know. Yeah, Christine had left at that time. Polly had come and gone. Amber stayed an extra year. So she was still on my sophomore year.
Yeah. So you weren't there at all, like when you started getting the Canadians and stuff like that, like Andrea and all those girls?
No, I wasn't. I was gone at that point.
That was right after you, probably.
That's when he was recruiting a lot more. I think at the end of my junior year, that was when he started recruiting Whitney and Jum Daigle, Jum Nato, all those girls, and then the Canadians as well, all those girls.
College soccer as a whole, was it a good time? Did you enjoy it? Did it get in the way of your studies?
It was the best time. It was awesome. I had a core group my freshman year, and it was, myself, Megan Watson, she was my roommate. We hung out with Jay Myers and Andy Martin, Mikey Arnold, Sean Platt, Neely Lozier. And we kind of were a core group our freshman year, and then sophomore year, we kind of started to branch out. Sophomore year, I moved out of the dorms, and Christine and Neely and I got a house right next to BJ's, actually.
Perfect spot.
So we would kind of rotate between parties at our house and then the parties where Jeremiah and Troy and Sean Karen and those guys were at too. So
it was honestly just the best of times.
It was, and then we'd part ways, and half of the people would go to BJ's, the other half would go to Round Point. Occasionally we'd try to sneak into BJ's, but at the time it was Cheryl that was working there, and she was scary, so you didn't want to get caught.
Shout out to BJ's, our original presenting sponsor. Rest in peace. You will forever be missed.
So sad.
We could just do a whole episode about BJ's. Overall, better soccer experience, high school or college?
I would go back to high school to play soccer in a heartbeat, but I would go back to that freshman year of soccer as well. Just not only, we weren't we were good. We weren't the greatest. It was still definitely a building year for Lucas. He built that program. They're fantastic now. But that freshman year, we just were a very close-knit core group of girls. And so I definitely miss that the most, I think.
How about a better social experience, high school or college?
Oh, college for sure. I worked at Rock's Diner.
Did you really?
Yes, I did. I worked with...
did you work with Sam there?
I did work with Sam and Jason. Or no, Jay didn't work there. He'd just come and see Sam a lot.
Get some free food.
Tara Pelletier, Ashley Hafford, Brittany, all those guys. Yeah, I worked there for a little while,
Shout
and
out
then
to
I ended up
Rocks. That's one of our sponsors right now. Shout out to Rocks.
exactly
Yeah, that's where I got
their
my
fry
start.
mix. It's not a
Yeah.
puts in; it's a mix.
All right, let's get to another Ethan ask here. Ethan's fired up. He's got all kinds of questions today on this historic episode of Big Time.
This might be one of the most important questions I've ever asked on the show, but are the best looking guys in the valley from Madawaska or from Fort Kent?
Oh my god!
See, these are questions that have
Oh,
never been asked before because we haven't had a female on the show. So this is important stuff.
I would have. Oh, that is a tough question. There are some. I just think, in general, guys from the valley are better looking.
Okay.
But Fort Kent or Madawaska, I'm gonna have to go with. So this is like different, but I think like the older guys ahead of me in Fort Kent were better looking. But I feel like I don't know. That's a tough question. You should do a poll. See what
Yeah, well,
every female thinks.
we'll put a poll up on it on Facebook or something like that. We're trying to get more interactive on there, so we'll throw a poll
There
up
you
there.
go. Better looking. Who's better looking? I would go with Madawaska just because I'm from there. All my friends are there.
Okay. Well, you better get me a ton of Madawaska listeners then for this episode if you're going to flaunt Madawaska like that.
Yes.
Yeah. So, graduated from UMFK with a degree in what?
In behavioral science.
And what'd you do with it? Where'd you go after college here?
I moved to El Paso, Texas. Lived there for 9 months. I worked at the admissions office actually for a little bit after I graduated.
Yep.
And then moved to El Paso, lived there for 9 months, and then moved to Montana and ended up meeting my boyfriend of now 5.5 years. And we're here and we have a house and a dog. And
You've been in Montana for that long?
I've been in Montana since 2011.
So, how'd you wind up, like, what brought you out there anyway? Like, Montana, like, it sounds beautiful. I've seen pictures. It's on my bucket list. I want to get out there. But how did you wind up out there? And El Paso, too. El Paso is very random, and it sounds terrible.
I just spun a globe and threw a dart, basically. No. It's a long story, but it ended up to be a good, definitely. I was 24 and I packed my bags and left Madawaska with my friend, and we drove all the way down to El Paso. Lived there for 9 months. It's like any other story. A girl moves for a guy, that type of thing.
Oh, okay.
So, so yeah, now we're in Montana. We're in Bozeman. It's the number 2 fastest growing non-metropolitan city. Did you say?
That's quite
So it's like
quite the category.
pretty up in, yeah, we're right near Yellowstone Club. So
Oh, nice.
Tom Brady just flies in over here and hangs out. They all have their houses up there.
It definitely is on my list of places to get to, though. Like, it looks gorgeous. Like, I do want to get out there at some point.
You have
so.
a place to stay. I tell everyone that I see at Coop's wedding,
Yeah.
people were asking me, like, I want to go up there. Come. Anyone who's listening to this podcast, come to Montana.
All right, it's time to get to the serious part of the episode where we just get real for a minute when we talk about death and stuff like that. Still looking for a sponsor for the segment. Anybody out there that's got some cash, throw it my way. I love money. It's called When You Die, What Jersey Do You Want to Be Buried In? You got a couple options. Which one means the most to you? Which one would you want to take to the grave with you?
I would choose my number 7 Owls, Madawaska Owls soccer jersey.
Just a classic. What shade of blue is that? What would you call it?
It's a royal blue.
Royal blue with the
Yes.
white trim, the white letters. Good choice.
It was beautiful.
All right, time to get to our other official segment on the show, the one that is sponsored. Charlito Wonders, brought to you by Rock's Family Diner. Liz, real quick, what was your go-to meal at Rock's Family Diner?
I did the fry mix all the time.
All day,
and then
right?
I'd make myself a BLT with melted cheese on there.
Can't go
So
wrong
good.
there, yeah. All right, Charlito from Canada. What's the question, bud?
Yo, Liz, what's up? It's Charlito out here in Halifax. Yeah, I know he grew up in a house with three brothers, all kinds of testosterone floating around that place out in Madtown, I bet. But let's hear a little bit of a softer side of the boys. They were all athletes, but which one of them at home had the softer side? Were they playing dolls with you, doing their hair? What was home life like? Let's get a little bit in depth of the Clavette Nation.
That's a good question. They definitely had a soft side when it came to me. Honestly, John was probably the one. I mean, I remember getting on his bike and him biking down the hill to the rec department and dropping me off for rec. He would hang out a lot with me. So he was definitely, Peter was older, and so he was kind of in and out. I didn't see him as much until high school when he moved back. But I do remember when I was little, I had my own bedroom and my brothers all shared a bedroom together.
Oh.
So they had a room with 3 beds in it, and then I had this queen size bed, like in this big bedroom. But they would get home, like my brothers would go to La Canciel or like Costigan's or something like that. And when they come home late at night, they would pick me up out of their bed and they'd make a bed in their room and kind of like set me down in there. So we would have like a lot of slumber parties, all of us. Or when my brothers would come back from college, they would do that. So there's definitely a softer side to all of them. And I think for John was probably the softest, but Andrew and I definitely were probably the closest. But yeah.
That's the stuff we like to hear on Big Time. We like to hear that type of stuff right there. Charlie with the great question. Charlie, thank you for coming through with that. That was huge. Great question from Charlie, though.
Yes.
Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, we broke ground today. We made history. We had our first female on the podcast, the youngest member to come through, the youngest member of the Big Time fraternity, and Madawaska Owl at that. Liz Clavette, ladies and gentlemen, on Big Time. Liz, want to thank you for coming through, making some time for us out there in Montana. We've been trying to make this happen for a while, and we made it happen. So I want to thank you for doing this. This is huge for us.
Well, thank you for having me. It was definitely a nerve-wracking experience, but it was fun.
This is huge. This is going to do big things for us because I keep on getting shit from people about not having any women on. So this is huge. People are going to get off my back. Sponsorships should start flowing through now. Now they know that we're a little bit more diverse, so we appreciate it here at Big Time. That's going to do it for this week's episode. Make sure to check out all of our previous ones out there on YouTube and iTunes. That's it for now. Tomas. See you next time.